Well, activation is this phase or component of the plan lays out how the team, the different teams involved, need to activate or really kind of say, yep, we're going into the phase of implementing our business continuity plan. So that means that somebody has to do a damage assessment, somebody has to figure out how much damage has been done, how much more damage can be take place, and then start notifying personnel and start deploying the teams. So there's at least one, and possibly two individuals who are identified to carry out the damage assessment, and they're not just going to look around and say, yeah, things look bad. Let's do this thing that says what it lays out on this piece of paper. There's like a criteria that they're going to go through to make the determination, because like I said earlier, there's a difference between a disaster recovery plan and a business continuity plan. Some disasters or you could just use the procedures and the disaster procedure plan, which is different than a BCP. BCP means we are in danger for a longer period of time. We have to figure out how to get things up and running. It's not just fixing a little thing, it's actually changing and fixing several things or getting them up and running in another location. So whoever's going to do the damage assessment will, what's the cause? What's the potential for the damage that can still happen? What's the actual effect to the critical functions? What resources have to be up, and they should understand what the critical resources or what the critical functions are of the company, because how would they make a determination? They need to understand the critical functions and the resources beforehand, because that is what they use, that knowledge, to help determine if they have to activate the plan. So still in this activation phase, once there's a determination, yep, we have experienced a big disaster, we have to activate this business continuity plan, the personnel need to be told, they need to be notified. And it's different if they're at work, notifying them, versus after hours notifying them. And there's actually products that will do this all through automation. You basically plug in everybody's phone number, their cell number, their pager number, and you will have it all lined up, who gets called, how they get contacted, and sometimes then it'll be just automated recording. Somebody picks up their cell phone and it'll say, we've gone through a disaster, you need to report at X, Y, and Z. So the people need to be notified, and on what, this is where we're at, this is where you need to go, and it start kind of herding the cats to be able to get the teams together to get the construction or moving the business to another site. So it's after a damage assessment and the criteria, activation criteria is met, which means that the business continuity team, or whoever is responsible for developing this plan, actually has to develop the criteria. And it's best if whoever's going to carry out this damage assessment is involved with developing the criteria, because they will know what this really means, versus if something bad happened, you just give some guy a piece of paper and say, hey, you decide what we're going to do now. It's better if they were involved and they're more intimate in this process. Also within the activation phase is emergency response, and this has to do with safety issues of dealing with people that are hurt. People need to be trained and identified who knows CPR. You have to have first aid information, know how to respond to different types of things, who's going to contact the authorities. That needs to be laid out before waiting for something bad to happen. This all needs to be laid out, and how to deal with different situations. Maybe there's a gas leak, or there's a fire. So somebody has to be responsible for understanding how to deal with these different emergency situations. So we went through the activation phase, the things that need to take place, a damage assessment, a notification of personnel, and then the emergency response. The next phase is called the recovery phase. Now there's actually a difference between a recovery phase and a reconstitution phase. The recovery phase is after the disaster happens, now we need to get back up and working. And the recovery phase could be that how do we get to a new facility, how do we get to the hot site, how do we get to the redundant site. So the recovery procedures is all about getting back up and running. And there should be procedures that are actually documented that people need to follow. And this is a complex thing because it's not like everybody could just go in and put all their pieces together. Most things have to happen in a sequence. You know, you have to lay down this technology, you have to coordinate this type of skill, you have to get these types of supplies together. So recovery procedures can be very complex, and if it's chaotic and it's confusing and people don't know what they're doing, you're really going to lose a lot of time, which usually equates to revenue. So since the recovery phase is usually complex because there's a lot of people doing different things, there's different teams, there's responsibilities, so it's best if you have this all laid out, the recovery steps already laid out. This team, who is this team? What exactly do they need to do in what sequence? And then once it happens, they report to a centralized place. Now, if it's a large company, it's a large disaster, then they'll set up like a command post. And as the teams finish their recovery activities, they'll report up, okay, done with this. And then somebody will keep track of it. Because some of the things have to be really in sequence and they may not be together. So there needs to be some type of a centralized entity. If it's a large disaster, a large company, there would be some type of a command post. If it's a smaller company, then that could be like the coordinator to keep, you know, all the things. One person has to know all the activities that are being successfully carried out or forgotten. So the recovery phase says, hey, we just had a disaster, we need to fix things, we need to get back up and running. Now the reconstitution phase is after the disaster and we need to go back home now. Now we need to go back to our primary site.